I don't have credit if I haven't spoken to all the parties involved. So I'm not asking you to trust big G government. I'm not asking you to trust certainly big P pharma. But I want you to understand that you have a role to play in this process, which is through civil communication, the communication of facts in a way in which legislators will be in a position to assess those particular facts in context. So I would not expect you at this juncture to believe that we've got this covered, that everything's going to be just hunky-dory, and that you're going to be happy with the outcome. But I hope by the time we are done next spring, you will respect the fact that we've tried to go forward with a straightforward process that's listened to all the parties. I see people shaking their heads. It's very hard for me to have a conversation with people who I don't think necessarily are going to give me the opportunity to prove that I can do that. That disappoints me. If you're frustrated, I'm pretty frustrated too, because I want everybody in this room to at least give us a chance to do the right thing. If you're not willing to do that, I guarantee you're going to be disappointed. So I think this is very important that everybody think about what they want for their kids and what they want for the state of Connecticut.
I agree that.
And the best thing you can ask of your elected officials is that we respect your voices, we respect your points of view, and that we do our jobs thoroughly and honestly. So I don't know what more to say to try to convince you, and I realize that trying to convince you is not the best approach today. But I want you to follow the process and engage in the process. And let's see where we come out.
Okay, so we have so many questions, and I want to make sure that we cover, several of them before we get everything done. So we have a lot of questions, so I want to get through your cards, okay? And if you ask questions, just so you know how they were selected at random, and with very similar questions removed, because a lot of people ask repeat questions, okay? Remove the duplicate. Okay, so this is for the doctors on the panel. Immune-compromised children who cannot be vaccinated. What are their risks, and how could they be protected at public stores, playgrounds, and other public places?
Sure. Hi. So this is a really serious issue, right? Because if you're a child and you have HIV or you have cancer and you're undergoing chemotherapy and your classmate has measles, well, maybe the classmate gets sick, has measles, and then recuperates. But if you're immunocompromised, that's really serious. And you could get really, really sick. You could die from something like that.
That wasn't the question.
Part of that question was how else are they protected? So a lot of parents keep their children away from those public places if they know they're at risk, right? You don't see cancer kids walking around the mall.
Correct.
So, but they have a right to an education, and they can go to school when they're feeling well. So.
Please let us speak, please.
That's okay. You can move on to the next question.
I just want to say that it's, I think what people don't realize is that immunosuppressive agents are, what I was trying to get out in my piece is that they're everywhere. And that in this room, there are a lot of people who may be on an immunosuppressive agent. So to ask a large group of people, I went through a very large number of diseases, if you remember. And so you're asking all these people to hide themselves so that they don't have the risk of getting a disease that could be prevented. I think what people are not appreciating is just how bad these diseases are. I was afflicted with measles. I had mumps. No, excuse me, I didn't have mumps. So I had chicken pox, and it was bad.
Excuse me, everybody. Please.
as
Please,
some other people.
listen.
So it wasn't as bad as some other people, and do we care about, are we a community that cares about the people who do poorly? And I think we should care about the people who do poorly.
Like the autistic children.
Those are very specific topics.
Okay, next question. How do you know,
Taking a close
this is also a question for the pediatric doctor here. How do you know before you vaccinate if the child is allergic to any of the vaccine ingredients?
You don't. Just like the first time you give your child peanut butter, you don't know if they're allergic until you give it to them.
That's true. I mean, that's true.
I mean, that is how it works.
That's how it works.
And now we force the risk.
We can end it, or we can continue to listen to the panel. If you don't want to listen to the panel, we could certainly end the forum.
Does anybody else want to comment on that at all?
I am very curious. That was one of my questions.
I think that's a question that we get all the
Can
time.
I speak up on that question?
Is there a mechanism in the proposed legislation for?
Did you submit the question?
I did, but no, so
Yeah, I wanted to keep to the system because otherwise it's going to be free for all. Thank you, though.
I thought I could comment. My child has allergies. Can I ask? I'm serious.
Do you believe in religious freedom?
I wanted to ask.
Do I believe in, yes, I do believe in religious freedom. It's in our Constitution. Everybody has a right to religious freedom, excuse me, everybody has a right to pray to their God. Everybody has a right to go to whatever church they like or worship however they like. However, I believe we have also separation of church and state, as that sign says back there, which I believe in as well. And that we have a responsibility as elected officials to, if somebody is going to a public school, then they have to be vaccinated.
How about private schools?
They have to be vaccinated if they're going to school.
Why do we pay taxes?
Excuse me, that was the question. Do I believe in religious freedom? Yes. Do I believe, so you want to go where your church on Sunday, I go to my church on Sunday, you go to your temple on Saturday, wherever you go, good for you. Go wherever you want. That's what our Constitution guarantees. Our Constitution doesn't guarantee that if you go to a school with other kids, that somehow you can put other children at risk because you make certain decisions. So that does not exist in our Constitution, which is why I believe we need to remove religious exemption from vaccinations.
I'll just, I know we shouldn't generally respond in to outbursts, but it doesn't make any sense to say that if you don't send your kids to public schools, you shouldn't have to pay taxes in town, right? I mean, that's like saying that if I don't drive on 95, my gas tank shouldn't be taken out of every time I fill up the tank because I don't use that public amenity. We have over 3 million people in Connecticut and 550,000 public school students, give or take. Millions, hundreds of thousands of people in the state don't send their kids to public school and they still pay taxes, right? The high level of public schools, especially in a town like Westport, contributes to the property values for all. So you can't say that because you pay taxes, you have a right to endanger other students in public schools. And to answer the question more directly about religious liberty, of course I support religious liberty, but it doesn't really matter what I support as a state legislator. Anything that we do in Hartford, anything that they do in Washington, it has to stand up to the strong, strong protections for religious freedom provided in the First Amendment. Yet, state Supreme Courts and the United States Supreme Court has made clear time and time again that your right to worship freely does not extend to your right to put others in harm's way. As Senator Duff said, you have the right to go to the sort of church you like, to pray in the manner that you like, to not vaccinate your child if you like. But if you're going to send them to public school, if you're going to put other students in danger because you're lowering the vaccine rate, dropping below the Center for Disease Control's recommended 95%, if you're going to endanger those students who can't get vaccines for medical reasons, then unfortunately you sacrifice your religious liberty in deciding to send your students to public school.
And private schools, just for the record.
Private school too.
Yes.
I heard you say that, Mr. Thomas. Private school too.
Public
So it
and
doesn't
private
matter
school,
about
just to be
religion.
clear, public and private?
Public and private, so if you're Orthodox Jewish or if you're Catholic.
We're not going to engage in a back and forth, please, ma'am. I support the First Amendment. I think it's important for people to recognize why the Founding Fathers put that in the First Amendment, why it was so important to them. What they were afraid of was the domination of a single religion, which would become the state religion, which is why they explicitly stipulated the difference between church and state. I think oftentimes freedom of religion is misused to cover all sorts of other types of beliefs. And what's really important here is that one's right to exercise their choice of religion stops when it interferes with the health and safety of someone else. Your religion does not give you permission to put others at risk. And that's what we're talking about today, public health. The distinction is you may practice your religion until it imposes on others. And that's what our Founding Fathers were concerned about.
What about
One
all the adults
religion
in the
or
school?
one point of view would dominate our country. And that's not what this country is about. It's about plurality. It's about diversity. And that's what we're trying to protect here as well.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question. We have a hard stop at 8:30. 8:30 is the end.
There's so many questions.
This is absolutely ridiculous. You should all be ashamed of yourself. I'm going. This is a waste of my time.
Thank you for leaving. Bye-bye.
Waste of my time.
Bye-bye. Have a good
All
night.
pro. There's
Thank
not
you.
one person up
Bye-bye.
there that represents us.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
This is for any of the positions on the panel. Can you tell me if there have been any children in Connecticut that have acquired a vaccine injury that you know of?
No, they never heard of one.
Well, it depends on your definition of vaccine injury, right? So I'm sure everyone here has, I'm sure everyone here has a different definition of what vaccine injury is or adverse effect.
How about just what the insert says?
So, I don't know the answer to that. But if you want to say, yeah, so common side effects like pain at the injection site, redness, fever, swelling, of course. If you want to say something like autism, which been disproven by I think you don't want the answers to these questions, so I will just stop now.
You're right. I think you guys don't want to see that.
This is the issue with this. Excuse me. This is the issue with this debate. Is that the only
There's no dialogue. You took 4 questions and you didn't even answer 3 of them. That's not a debate.
Just to be clear, we're not sitting up here writing the law tonight. This isn't what the legislative process looks like at all. And for those of you who have seen Hartford, excuse me, sir. Excuse me. For those of you who have been up to Hartford, and I've seen many of you there, you know that the legislative process is not only deliberative, but also inclusive of public opinion. Every citizen has the right to weigh in. That's not what this is at the moment. This is a forum. This is a forum where we are hoping to explain our thinking and also to provide a platform for some of the medical experts who are kind enough to donate their time this evening and share what they know and what they've studied. That is the purpose of this. We're not writing the law tonight. We're not, this isn't a public forum, unfortunately.
We heard you. You guys should hear us.
Okay, hold on. Everybody needs to pause for 1 second.
Will
We're
we
choosing to be
advertise
here.
this
We don't have to
initially?
like it. We're choosing to be here. If we choose to be here, we need to listen to what they're saying, regardless of how we feel about anything that is coming out of their mouths. We've chosen to be here. So give them this opportunity. Even if there's not reciprocal dialogue, we have chosen to be here. And if you do not like it, then we need to leave. But it is not. But it is not. This is a private meeting that they have hosted, that we are here. So we just need to listen.
Public or private? Can you answer us, Mr. Duff?
And I don't agree with anything, but I agree with respect.
Advertising, 7:30 to 8:30. It was not a secret.
Was it for the public?
It was not a secret.
For the
And
public to
we said we would
listen,
answer.
not to
We would bring
debate.
in experts, we bring in the legislative process, and we would answer questions to the best of our ability. And so we are working to do that. Now, if you you may not like the answers, but the answers are the answers. So,
Only 4 questions.
excuse me, ma'am.
If you stop shouting
If you stop shouting, yes, we might be able to get some more. And I'm very glad this is on CTN.
Okay, and actually, this I think is an important thing for everybody in the room to hear, so just listen up, listen up. I think everybody here would certainly like to know about the process, how this is going to go in the legislature, the public forums that they can participate in, the letters that they can write to legislators, their representatives, and what the schedule is for next session.
Well, I'll start it, and then I'll let Representative Steinberg, as chair of the committee, talk a little more about it. But we begin February 6th, I believe, whatever the first Wednesday after the first Tuesday is in February. There'll be a bill, as the representative said, in the Public Health Committee. There may be bills in other committees too, I don't know. And there'll be the process of a public hearing and ability for people to come in and hear both sides. I'm assuming we'll hear from medical professionals, we'll hear from folks like you, and then the committee will decide what they want to do. I take Representative Steinberg at his word when he says he wants to have a deliberative process, an inclusive process, and he wants to work on issues like the medical exemption, listening to the medical community and others as to what is the best way to craft that for the future, and how best we can get a piece of legislation through the House and Senate and the governor's signature that protects our children, but does it in a way that's respectful. This is a debate that is obviously has a lot of emotions to it, that people feel very, very passionately about, and there's a lot of information out there. But again, we have to do, as legislators, we have to assess the information and then make a decision on it. So I'm going to hand it over to Representative Steinberg on the rest of the process in this committee.
You know, we give chairs of committees great latitude in how they choose to run their committees. And I think there might be some who would say, I'll wait till February, we'll come up with some loose language and see what people say. It's not the way I operate. We're talking about this in September, and we've been talking about this all summer because we want to have a thoughtful process, and we want to have the time before session even begins to engage as many people as possible. If you want to talk with me, send me an email, send me some other information. I have time to assimilate that information.
Yeah.
I have a time, maybe not for everybody, but to respond if I have questions and to try to understand things better. My goal is to use the time we're not in session to glean as much information as possible and try to be discriminating, try to understand the background behind it, try to hear from as many people as possible. It's a far more time-consuming approach than perhaps others would choose to do. But I know this matters to all of you. And even if you're not happy with the outcome, all I can say is, I hope you will respect the process because it's my intent to operate as transparently as possible and fairly as possible. So the process is legitimately, a bill comes out in February. This is a short session, so that means that the initial language is created by the committee chairs themselves. We have a conversation within the committee. We go into public hearing, not on every bill, but I can guarantee you this bill will have a long public hearing and maybe over more than one night, where we stay as long as we have to hear from everybody who wants to testify and comment on that. We also look at submitted testimony for those who can't make it in person. I can assure you after that, the language in the bill will change. We will look at ways to respond to some of the things that we've heard. We may go through any number of changes before we feel it's ready to bring to the floor of the assembly for a final vote. That's the process.
It is 8:30.
So is there going to be another forum, or is this going to be it?
I think.
Next question, please.
Okay. Okay, sorry. I thought we were concluding, so, herd immunity. Herd immunity cannot be achieved after being that after 20 years you are no longer immune. Is that correct? And are anyone vaccinated over 25, 30 years ago is no longer considered vaccinated? Can the doctor speak to that?
I mean, I think to a degree that's correct. However, there is some amnesic remembering of the body, even though the titers are lower. I think that we're not in disagreement with you. But the fact is that when they achieve these very high levels, for whatever reason, it seems to do the job. So I guess that's the best I can say. I'm not an expert at this. I do not belong to the CDC. My job is to practice medicine. And by the way, people, I think you misjudge us. You're accusing us of working for pharma, and I was at the press conference for Attorney General William Tong a couple of weeks ago in reference to price fixing. So if you don't think we're cynical as well, and we have our own opinions on things.
Prices have to do with injecting our kids with poison.
These people, man.
Okay.
Any other doctors? Okay. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for being here, and we appreciate it. The conversation will continue.
Thank you.
Those watching, get your food.